Peace, family. Welcome to another Post-Maafa Reconstruction. My name is Tahuti Forever. I am the architect of MelaNation. MelaNation is a company who's looking to galvanize the Black community under commerce and uplift the Black community at large. We have an app coming out September 15th of 2027 called MelaNation. So please keep in mind and look forward to that app. Miss Lizzie Woody, can you please introduce yourself?
Right here. Can you hear me?
I can.
Okay. This is Lizzie Woody coming to you with another podcast.
Post-Maafa Reconstruction.
Yes. Yeah. As I always say, I've been around here for a long time, and I'm working on trying to help galvanize our community, the things that we need for our community, and seeing if we can actually work together to a common cause, for a common cause. So welcome.
Ashe. So before we hit replay before we went live, we were discussing where our people are, because we're looking to reach out to our people and bring awareness to our people about the infrastructure that we're putting in place for everyone. And we were discussing these different locations that we might find our people situated in. Which locations was that, Miss Lizzie?
We were actually talking about one of the first places that I would think of as a melanated or Black person are the churches. That's where we galvanize. That's where we are, and we definitely are going to reach out and start working with trying to educate us on how important it is for us to start talking, start sharing. If we want to include the community, because the silos are gone.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need any more silos.
Right. There's so many different organizations and different companies that have put in the work. We've been putting in the work for a very long time. And at the churches, if you don't have to be religious to appreciate the effect that the church has had on our people, and realize that that's where we are. We can't deny that our people are in the church houses, right? And they go there with the best of intentions. Their intentions are good, and they go there for fellowship, and they go there for growth. These are ideologies. These are powerful strengths that we can lean on when building the ecosystem for melanated people. So I agree that we should definitely reach out to the people in the churches and see if we can galvanize these different church houses. Another place would be educational systems, the school systems, high schools, middle schools. We're there. We're in these school systems. And of course, there are a lot of individual companies, independent school systems that are focused on educating the youth from an African-centered perspective. So those will be our main targets right there, because they're already developing the culture. So the school systems is another location that MelaNation would like to connect with and have a network of schools.
Also, let me just add, as far as the school systems, we have, maybe people do not realize it, but we have a lot of new schooling efforts that are out there now. I'm speaking of today, and we have to have that, but we need to know who's out there, who's doing what. Of which I think today is the guest today is she about the school that she's starting, or am I wrong? Uh,
Our guest
she
is Miss Ashante, Miss Ashante, Nicola Ashante. We did a pre-recording a couple of weeks ago, I believe, where she introduced us to all the different platforms that she has created. And she created so many economical platforms that people can go register and just get educated and get different applicable resources that they can apply to their lives. So,
okay.
yeah, she was, you remember Miss Ashanti. Yeah, she's a phenomenal person.
I remember leaving that show, amazed.
Yes, yes.
um,
So we're
yeah,
gonna
we
let
did.
her.
Um, but as far as the school, I'm just saying people are starting micro schools. As far as our community, people are starting schools. And those schools need to get out there to the community so that the community can be aware of those schools to take advantage, you know. And we can just stop, complaining about the school system because we're creating our own.
Yes,
But we need to know that they're out there, and that's always my thing. Do we know that we have those? So MelaNation App is going to be a part of letting you know, and hopefully you will, pass it on to whomever.
yes,
But
indeed.
we need to know.
Another main focus of where our people are is entrepreneurs. We have a lot of entrepreneurs in our community, and these entrepreneurs, what they do in order to make their business successful is they create their own network of people that they can buy and sell to. So our entrepreneurs have already created these networks. So there are many, many Black-owned businesses that are connected with many, many other Black-owned businesses. So that's where our people are. So we definitely want to be able to network with that group of the community as well. So there's a lot of resources, a lot of doors that we need to knock on and explain the situation and the opportunities that we're providing to our community. Um,
Absolutely, and we need to look at it from the perspective of that's not my competition. You
mhm.
know, we are helping to fulfill the needs of the community because one or two will not do it. It takes us to come together as what we're trying to do that.
Mhm.
So just open up and be open about supporting and sharing each other's information.
Yes, indeed. And I know that you've been doing this for a long time, sharing the information, and I understand it's hard to get the information to everyone. You can only reach so many people with the new information. And I know you do these interviews all the time, trying to give our people more exposure. So we definitely appreciate you for that. Where did you interview today?
Well, actually, Miss Sean Pearson, I'm sure that if you're in Arizona, you have heard or seen her somewhere, someplace. Uh, her Today they are making an announcement. Well, actually, the center doesn't open until I think it opens on the first of September. But it is a silver senior center that is 5 days a week. Seniors can go to the center. I don't have the name of the location, unfortunately.
You said it's a
Um,
senior silver center or a silver senior center.
it is a silver senior center, I believe.
That's a tongue
And
twister.
said again,
That's a
I thought
tongue
yeah,
twister.
right. And it is all about providing opportunities for seniors to get out and enjoy themselves, play games, whatever it takes. And another part of that is the youth. The youth will be involved with this as well. because they have a lot of knowledge that they can pass on to us. Well, I call myself a senior citizen, but we need them both. And the pastor did say that with the youth being involved with the seniors, that kind of gives the seniors an opportunity to utilize their, especially if they have Alzheimer's or illnesses, to where you don't really get a lot of conversation, but dealing with the youth might kind of activate their communications or whatever.
Yeah.
Of which,
Yeah.
it's a combination of both, satisfying both needs of the senior and the youth.
Definitely. I think that's part of nature, that balance. We have to have the youth because there's benefits to the youth, but then there's also benefits for the elderly. And the balance is where you have that synchronicity where you can grow the community. You can't ignore either. You have to take the strengths of both in order to strengthen the community at large. So, I definitely agree with the sentiment that you're speaking about. I do have some news, by the way. We have some
Okay.
news from our developers. We are currently on version number 2 of the Alpha app. We will be receiving version number 3 next month. So
Oh,
we're
that's
we're at the,
that's in a few days.
yeah, we're at the end of this month already. So by the end of next month, we will have the third version. Like we spoke about the last week in reference to the different changes and issues that we want to have resolved before the app launches. And I believe we submitted about 22 alterations. So when those alterations are corrected, they'll be corrected next month. I imagine that we may be able to approve the app at that point. That's what I'm hoping.
Okay.
Right. So if we can approve the app, what would happen is we'll go to the next phase. The next phase of the app will be the beta phase. And the beta phase is where the back end of the app will start to be created and we'll be able to actually test the features. So currently, at the alpha phase, there are features that we can fiddle around with, but none of the features actually function at 100%. They might function at 10% or 15%, but with the beta phase, they will function at 100%. So what I'm hoping is that we can approve the third version of the alpha app, and which will allow us to go over to the beta phase. So by October, I'm hoping that we're in the beta phase and we're taking another stride to presenting the app to the community. I'm really looking forward to that.
So what you're actually saying, are you saying that you could select something that you want to do and you can go and actually connect with it? Or could you explain that a little?
So the beta phase will allow more functionality, which means you could go onto the app and I can talk to you through the app, right? It will be live for the melanated community, the people that's part of our company. It won't be, live for the public, but we
Oh, okay.
basically be testing the full features of the app.
Okay.
But that is in the future. And I'm hoping we can reach that point within the next month or two.
Okay.
Yes, indeed. So, but the update is that we will have the third version for sure next month. We'll have that downloadable to our phones. This version wasn't downloadable to Apple because we had an issue with the Apple server. However, that issue has been resolved. So for the members of the community that has an Apple phone, they will also be able to download the third version of the MelaNation app. So it'll be available for Android and Apple.
Okay, that's good to know.
Yes,
Um,
indeed. So that
Now,
being said, no further ado, we'll go ahead and we'll introduce our guest speaker for tonight. One moment for me to bring up this video. All right, we reached one of my favorite segments of the show. We have a very special guest speaker here by the name of Nikala Ashante. She is the founder and CEO of Whole Life Living Academy. She's an educator, curriculum developer, an advocate for Pan African learning and youth development through global cultural centered education. And we are here with her today. She has a presentation, a beautiful presentation that I was able to witness on another podcast. And I'm just so excited that she has agreed to spend the time that she has with us today.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate you, all of you. Yes, my name is Nikala Ashante of Whole Living Academy. And I also founded a tech company that occupies between Houston and Rwanda, East Africa, Ashante Global Solutions. And today we are going to get into talking about education, technology, how we can continue to make the world a better place. I just want to thank you all for having me. First and foremost, what you're doing with the MelaNation app is tremendous. It's really an effort of nation building in the technology field from what I can see. And it's going to make a vast impact, not only on African Americans, but I imagine on the African diaspora as well.
Ashe, ashe.
I am so happy that you came here to bless us with your presence, to give us your presentation. And everything you're doing is so exciting to me. Can't wait to hear about it.
absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. I really appreciate that.
If you can tell us your origin story, how did you get started in this area?
Yes. So in the education area, I would say that I became really passionate about education in high school. I was a student that, was separated from many of my, family members and classmates in my neighborhood very early on, due to, testing that I was given when I was maybe around 6 years old. And I was in a special gifted and talented group as a child. We engaged in coding, creative activities, robotics, and so on at, a very young age, as well as, doing completely different schoolwork than other people that were in my same neighborhood, in the Freeman's town of Tamina, which is in the Metro Houston area in Texas. And because I was doing things that were so different, from my family members and friends that I was growing up around, there was a sort of alienation around that, where, I had to do a lot of code switching to be able to exist, in both environments, right? But I was exposed to technology at a very young age, even in a way of being able to engage creatively engaged in innovation, at a very young age. When I entered the 10th grade, I wanted to have the experience of going to a school where I could be with my peers, could learn with my friends, people that, thought like me and, looked like me. And, I had grown up, like I said, in a freedman's town. So it was not, an integrated neighborhood, so to say. It was like concentrated culture, right? Like completely concentrated culture. So it was really important to me, as I got into my teen years, to be able to, be in an environment where I was able to more so occupy that, within educational spaces as well. So I transferred to Sharpstown High School in Houston, and kind of like the interview that came out recently, or maybe it was like a selfie video with the brother, I think his name was Darius Cooks, where he was talking about the high schoolers that were not able to read or write or finish sentences. That is definitely not the case for everyone. Like, we have so many brilliant children, in the public school system that are able to do so many things, but there is definitely an element of that. And, when I arrived at Sharpstown, I saw that there were classmates of mine that were not able to read. With the program that I was in, I was identified to be on a college level around like the 3rd or 4th grade. So my mind was completely blown to see children my age at 15 that were not able to read. Like, it was something that disturbed me on a deep level. And many of the teachers at that time did not look like us, and would even call the other children dumb or stupid, back in those days. Not saying that they still do that, hopefully not. But, they were very overt about it at that time. And that disturbed me as well, because I didn't feel like it was the responsibility or the fault of the children that, they were not able to read or were not able to understand some of the concepts that were given in math and science. So I offered myself to assist. And I would say that that was really where my journey started as an educator. The teachers were like, all right, if you think you could do a better job, have at it, And I was like, okay, I will. And, I jumped in there and, assisted my classmates with, being able to, show progress so that, I could tell the teachers, like, see, look, they're not dumb. They're not stupid. It's just that, you're not taking the time to actually engage with them, and work through the challenges that they're having. And I would say that my journey with being an educator never stopped, since then. In my early 20s, as a young mother, I became a homeschooler as well, working with co-ops, African-centered schools, beginning to write African-centered curriculum. And then that continued to develop, over time. I was always making websites, doing graphic design. So coming into this current, AI era, I have had, almost 20 years experience formally as an educator, and an even longer experience within, the technology field. So I've been really excited to engage with these new tools and to look at how they can assist us in being able to move towards various levels of liberation for ourselves as, African descent people.
Ashe. Well, I did have some follow-up questions, but you were so detailed that you actually
Thank you.
Darn.
Bar.
Yeah.
So, as far as the Pan-African global opening for this curriculum, what's the time frame on that? How long have you been working on it?
Yeah, I would say overall, about a decade, and it's out there, for people to engage with. PanAfricanCurriculum.com over 2,000 days of curriculum, kindergarten through 12th grade, across all of the core subjects, because it is designed for homeschoolers predominantly. We actually cover from the morning until the evening, because we found that a lot of homeschoolers don't know what to do in the afternoons or the evening. Like, if you've covered your educational material in the morning and then your 13-year-old is like, okay, so can I go play Fortnite for the rest of the day? Then you might be inclined to be like, okay, yeah, like you did your work, go ahead. But of course, if they're doing that every day, then it can actually have a negative effect, right? So you have to have the balance between, the academic goals that you have for each day, and then also looking at, spending time outdoors, engaging in the community with Zims, cultural centers, doing the independent reading, doing the family time. So all of that is actually included, in the curriculum as well, so that there's not a point where you're totally lost. Like, okay, it's 7 p.m. Like, what do I do now? Like, Mama, can I go play Call of Duty? Like, no. It's time for you. It's time for you actually to read that book that we got for you. That's what it's time for before you do that. And then you can have your 30 minutes of screen time, after that. And we found that some of the parents were struggling with implementing the curriculum with their children. And they may have been used to using platforms like, Khan Academy or Time for Learning, where their child can log in and actually complete the lessons, and then they can just support them with that, instead of having to be, so hands-on if they're new to homeschooling, and that can be a bit of a struggle for them. So we're building out a new system now that is completely interactive, that will be ready in this next few weeks, called the Whole Learning Scholarverse. And parents will have access to it from the same platform, panafricancurriculum.com. So you can join the wait list for that now, if you're even thinking about schooling.
So is the Whole Living Academy, is it accredited? Do they get credits for going there? Or is it going to be accredited to regular?
Yes. Schools? Yes, we are accredited. So Whole Living Academy is our overarching umbrella, our school where we hold live classes. Pan-African Curriculum is a free curriculum that we have created for Black people around the world, the African diaspora, right? When people join the interactive platform through that, they would get their transcripts, report cards, and so on, if we're assisting them with that at a very affordable cost, right? Of course, they can download the curriculum, use the curriculum for free. We received a grant from Vela Education last year for $50,000 that allowed us to be able to, complete and publish the Pan-African Global Open Curriculum, right? So that's always going to be free. The interactive side of it, the Scholarverse, that part, is not free, but it's very, very extremely affordable. And it makes the curriculum interactive, where you can sit your child down in front of the computer and they can actually go through the lessons. Our overarching umbrella, Whole Living Academy, is an accredited, you would call virtual academy or private school institution, right? That is being implemented at home with qualified teachers that are meeting with students through video calls and working with them in small groups, in a way that you may hire a tutor to work with your child in pre-calculus, something you may struggle with, as a parent, if math was not your major, right? And that tutor will make sure that your child is able to thrive. So in a small, private school or homeschool environment, it's similar to that in terms of your child getting that focused attention that is able to bring the best out of them and guide them through all of the subjects, so that they're able to learn and perform at a high level. And then when they're doing that transition to college, career, entrepreneurship and so on, they're doing so on a really solid foundation and developed holistically. So aside from math, science, reading, we're also teaching 21st century finance and entrepreneurship, martial arts, coding, mindfulness, holistic health, nutrition. Children are learning about stocks and, which foods and herbs that they utilize, at a very young age, so that by the time that they're transitioning to adulthood, they're doing so on a solid foundation rather than learning all of those things for the first time, where it's so late in the game that it's like, okay, if you have to really hold on to something for 30 years, the stock market, for example, to see, that compound interest start to work for you, if you're not starting until you're 30, then you're not going to get the most out of it, right? But what if you're able to have that knowledge to get a custodial account at the age of 12, already having the knowledge about how to research the stock market and choose the appropriate things, right? Then by the time that you're 42 years old, you're even able to be in that 6-figure, 7-figure arena, which is something that we really need as a people. We need to have a foundation from the beginning. And we're losing so many people to illnesses, at such a young age. So we have to have holistic health, right? We have to have technology. We have to have all of it. So that's what Whole Living Academy is all about, is holistic learning to develop the children fully as holistic adults.
That is so great. Nikala, I need to get in this class.
Come on. We're gonna bring you in.
I think we all need to.
I need this class.
Yes, indeed. And Nikala,
You know what?
Go ahead, Miss Lizzie.
No, I was going to say, before we started the show today, there was a clip that came on. This Black gentleman was talking about this other gentleman that was a teacher, and he was crying. He was crying because there was a 12th grade student that I think either graduated, was about to graduate, and he could not read.
Oh. Well,
And I'm just saying, how do you account for that?
We don't have that issue at Whole Living Academy, to have to account for it. It takes such a disconnect over a long period of time to get to the point of being in 12th grade and not be able to read. Now, we did recently have a 12th grader who she received a scholarship to North Carolina A&T for forensics. And, she received a grant from the National Council of Black Studies Freedom Project for launching her app that she did in her honors entrepreneurship capstone. And the app actually allows people to put in their zip code and to see the water quality and the air quality in their area and what they can do to protect themselves. She was accepted to over 15 universities. So that's what we're looking at when we're transitioning students into college. And that's because of the focused attention. Now, I did teach in a public school system before. And when I was in there, I did see exactly what you're talking about. I remember there was a young man named Jose when I was teaching 7th grade, and he was 15 years old in the 7th grade at this time, and he was not able to read. And I was so concerned about him. And I sat down with him during class. I was teaching writing. And, I sat down with him, and he was learning so fast, just giving him those little tidbits. And he was like, oh, I get it. And I was like, oh, snap. Like, it's not that he can't learn. It's just that he needs me to focus more attention on him, and then he's able to understand it. And then I remember the dean of 7th grade came in. I won't say the name of the school. I don't want to make them look bad. But she said, you can't spend more than 90 seconds with each child or you're going to get written up.
Oh, my goodness.
And 30 seconds. It's not
What?
enough. I'm like, the other children are fine. Like, they're okay. They were doing their worksheets. I was working with Jose, they're fine, right?
Mhm.
She's like, no, every time that you spend more than 90 seconds on each child, you think about it. You have 17 students in your class. You have this long for the period. It takes this long for them to sit down, this long for them to transition back out. If you have to do your guided practice, you have to do your independent practice, your lesson. If you're spending more than 90 seconds with each child, you're doing the other children a disservice, right? I'm like, well, how do I help the child if I can't? She's like, well, you would have to come in and stay with him during your lunch period, sacrifice your lunch period, and you can work with him, right? So I came in, I sacrificed my lunch period. I was like, I'll just eat this protein bar and, come and work with him. And he was progressing, was asking about getting him extra support. They told me they couldn't give him extra support because he was unfixable. That was literally the word that they used, was unfixable. Yes, they said that they only had enough resources to work with maybe 2 children from the grade level in terms of the extra support with the reading specialist. And they wanted to focus on the children that were fixable, not the children that were unfixable.
Wow.
I said, well, let's help him get a GED. He's going to be 18 in a few years. He's not going to be able to make it out there if he doesn't have something. They said, we don't do GED prep. We're a college prep school, not a GED prep school. So I'm like, okay, well, what options are there for him? They're like, there's nothing we can do. So I told him, I said,
my God.
I'm going to have to teach you, I'm going to teach you how to, have some skills so you can make some money because, in a few years, you're going to be 18. You have to have something you can do. I'm sorry, the school is not going to really help you like that, So let's figure out something. What talents do you have? He said, I know how to draw. I said, okay, bet. I'm gonna go get some paper and some picture frames, some photo frames from the dollar store. You draw, I put it in the frame, we sell it, right? You start a business. So he sat there doing his lunch periods and he drew all of these pictures and we framed them, right? And then I went to the other teachers and I said, look, Jose drew these pictures. Like, he's selling them. Like, can everybody support him and buy a picture for $5? To show him that we support him. None of the teachers would support his artwork. They said, I don't like him. I'm not buying that. I'm like, you don't like him? You can't say that about a student. They're like, yes, I can. I can say,
but what you did was great.
That
was great.
I'm like, what?
So the kids they don't like, they're not going to help them in the class either, evidently.
Right. So I had to buy them and pretend like the other teachers bought them because I didn't want him to know that he didn't have the support of the teachers, right? And so that's just one story of many, 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 many stories that are out there. If you talk to teachers, all around the country, right, you'll see that these stories are not really uncommon, the story you were telling from, Brother Darius Cooks, right? There are also so many brilliant children who do thrive, even in those systems. But, you have to think about the outcome that you want to get. Tupac had that piece about the rose that grew from concrete, right? And we have so many roses that grow from concrete. And what we have to realize is that concrete is not soil.
Right.
Just because the rose grew from concrete does not mean you need to plant your roses in concrete. Right? That's not where you plant roses.
No.
You plant roses in fertile soil, right? So if you recognize that you have a really great school system in your area, kudos. If you recognize that that's not the case in your area, don't plant your children in concrete expecting them to thrive as a rose, because roses are not meant to grow in concrete. You don't take a plant and say, okay, I know plants are supposed to get sunlight, but let me put this one in the oven because the oven is hot too, just like sunlight, and just see what happens. Maybe it'll be okay, right?
It's not going to be
So
okay.
these are things we have to consider is like, okay, well, if you know what it is, if you know what the situation is in your area, in your school district, and you know it's not something that's conducive to your child's best interest, then make a different decision by any means necessary, because that time is going to pass by so fast.
So in order to get into your school, does a student have to take a test to see what grade level they're really on, or you just take them because the report card says 7th grade, they go to the 7th grade?
We do administer placement tests. We are also flexible in how we administer the placement test based on, the individual needs of the students. Some students may not test well or may be neurodivergent in some way. Neurodivergency is not always, something that is the way we think it is. It can also be something where a student is exceptionally advanced, and that can be a neurodivergency as well. But, they may struggle with other areas like in, communication or social skills, but they may be like far, far beyond, anyone else academically, for example, right? And they may not test well. They may be on a 40th grade level, but, be able to only test on a 3rd grade level if they're given a traditional test. So sometimes we may do some one-on-one sessions or group sessions with the child to better assess their level, before we place them, rather than it being done, through a traditional test. And we don't place the students just based on their age. If we have a student who is on a 12th grade level and they are 14 years old, then that's fine. They will be in that class, and then we will help them to be able to get the support to make a life plan based on where they are. We don't believe in 14, 15-year-olds going into a university setting where they're going to be exposed to all types of different adult things, but they can transition into a junior college or an online college while also continuing to engage in activities, living at home with their parents, going to participate in sports and culture and arts and so on, until they get to that age of maturity where it would be appropriate for them to be outside of the home. We don't encourage students to leave home at 18, because why would you? We encourage them, as you begin to get your business or your career off the ground, to save money, to put it into an interest-bearing account, to put it into investments, to diversify your portfolio. And then by the time that you're 25, 27 years old, you can be ready to buy land, to build a house, for example, outright, instead of being stuck with a 30-year mortgage. If you're leaving home at 18, what foundation do you have to stand on unless your parents are wealthy? Right? We have a student who we graduated a few years ago at the age of 16. She had $30,000 saved up from lessons that she learned in our financial literacy and entrepreneurship class. By the time that she graduated, when she turned 18, she bought land from me. I have a real estate investment company. She bought land from me at the age of 18 so that she could begin preparing herself to build an Airbnb. Now she's getting ready to graduate, at the age of 19 with her bachelor's degree from, what is it called? It's one of the science universities in Canada that, she ended up transitioning into. But yes, so, we look at, hitting all points to really prepare you for life. Because otherwise, what are you doing? You're going out there, okay, you made all A's, you have a 4.0, you have a 4.5, you have a 5.0, you have a 5.5 GPA. And then you're going out into the world and you don't know what to do.
Right.
How is that going to benefit you if it's not translating into how you're able to build the structure for your life beyond high school? Right? So those are things we have to think about as well.
I'm really, really excited to get into this presentation because I've seen parts of it on Asar Imhotep's live. And I know this presentation was very, very fantastic. So if we can go ahead and transition into that.
Yes, yes. Okay, so again, thank you so much for having me here today. And, as I shared, Co-Living Academy is a virtual academy, an online school, Pan-African Global Open Curriculum, which we've created at panafricancurriculum.com, is also administered online. So all of these are related to technology. And there are other areas in technology that we need to consider as well, just like Brother Tehuti has with the MelaNation App, to be able to contribute towards nation building in the African diaspora, right? And so let's get into looking at that. So when we look at our tradition throughout history, we can see that we have been harmonious and observant. We built mathematics, astronomy, engineering by watching natural systems closely over long stretches of time. Harmony with nature was our discipline of study, practiced across generations. This practice runs centuries older than the word biomimicry. Biomimicry is when you're copying something from nature to create an innovation, right? In our tradition, historically, we practice something I like to think of as synergistic innovation. So, for example, when you see this brother here in Ghana weaving the kente cloth, the loom that is being produced on, is actually derived from observing the spindle of the spider. When the spindle of the spider emits those strands of webs, it's the same way that the loom works with the yarn that you see being woven together here. So you can imagine how closely that they had to study the spider to be able to create something based on that, that can produce clothing, also scarves, and so on, that are able to last for centuries. AI is the newest instrument to be able to implement this type of work that we have always done, being able to create innovations that are both harmonious and observant. So when we look at our tradition from history, we can see that we were able to look at nature, look at what was around us, and then build something that could be used for centuries. Even in ancient Mali, we had the termite mounds that informed the passive cooling of the Eastgate Center in Harare, a building that runs on a fraction of the energy of, the traditional or conventional cooling systems today. The Dogon architecture, the Maasai, the Yoruba, they all had environmental designs that read landscape, weather, and living systems as data. Even when we look at Nile astronomy and the calendars, geometry, and engineering built there that lasted for civilizations, we can see that, we had use of biomimicry, observing nature, and then building something harmonious based on that. And I'm seeing that the pictures that I have here are not showing up in my presentation. So I'm going to stop sharing for just a second, to reload it. As I'm reloading it, I want you to think about this statement. Technology and biomedical research have spent most of their history solving for white male bodies, white male faces, and white male problems, right? These are the bodies that drugs were tested on. These are the faces that cameras were trained to see. These are the problems that were funded. And we can see this in the facts. If we look at FDA policies, if we look at the National Institute of Health Revitalization Act, we have been excluded by design, right? So exclusionary trial design produces exclusionary medicine. The harm is structural. Even when we're looking at AI and computer vision, we find that the algorithms were trained on white male faces, and one of the main data sets that was used for years, being trained on those bases, the data was almost 84% white, right? So of course, if you have these studies that are based on white males, if you have even the computer vision being trained on data that relates to white males, then we can see that the results of both of those issues would be that, you know, the medicine that is being designed is not going to be as effective for us and for our bodies. But also what we will find is that the algorithms themselves become inherently racist, right? Now, I'm sure everyone here has experienced maybe someone in their family, you know, if not even yourself, being profiled. Has anyone had that experience here or seen a family member have that experience? Yes, yes. I think you were on mute, Sister Marjorie, but you said yes, you had that experience.
Yes, and I've had a lot of relatives that experienced that.
Yes, so imagine if now the issue is actually combined into the technology itself, where instead of it being a police officer that may be misidentifying you, it could even be a camera that's misidentifying you and then referring you into the criminal justice system based on that misidentification. How would you be able to fight against that?
Right.
Yeah, I
Right.
had no
So yes, and so that is, you know, this new era that, you know, we're coming into now. We're coming into an era where we even have algorithmic racism that is taking place. And because of the data being based on white males, we can risk, you know, having those types of, you know, misidentifications happening. But of course, aside from that, we would also have, you know, the persistent issue around the field of medicine as well, where in the field of medicine, we're not getting the proper treatments, you know, for illnesses that we may experience because of the research not being catered to us. So let me share my screen again here.
Yeah, what you're talking
and
about.
And we will
really,
talk about how to address these issues as well. Go ahead, Brother Tehuti.
What you're talking about really hits home for our family, because my son was misidentified and he was brutally assaulted by the Phoenix Police Department. We're here in Phoenix, Arizona, and we ended up suing the city, and it was based on a misidentification. So what you're talking about is very near and dear to us, and it hits home.
Right, sure does.
Yes, and I'm sure we've all lost someone as well due to, you know, non-communicable diseases like, you know, diabetes or cancer, you know, and so on as well, right? And, you know, even losing people in our family, you know, to these diseases is connected to racism as well. Because if the research is not based on us, then the treatments that we're receiving are also not based on us, right? And so that's something that we have to also keep in mind. So we looked at, you know, the history, you know, here, and let's go into looking at, you know, how we can build forward in a different way. Has everyone here heard of, read the book Blueprint for Black Power by Dr. Amos Wilson?
I haven't.
No,
okay,
I know Dr. Amos Wilson.
Highly recommend, highly recommend. The book was written in the 90s and it's very long. It's somewhere around like 900 pages. but it's a framework that talks about how to address problems across the African diaspora in sectors, right? So for example, one sector would be looking at economic and land power, another psychological and consciousness power, another institutional power, and so on, and the suggestions that he makes for us to strengthen our communities in all of those areas. Now, these technology tools that we have now are instruments for reclaiming a measure of each of these domains. And when we look at some of the technologies that, I've started building as well, we'll get into looking at, some of those later, then we can also see, I'll just screenshot this here so we can kind of come back to it, but, stay on track with time. We'll see that they also go across those domains, the economic, land, political, informational, consciousness, health, biology, institutional, and so on, right? So when you're thinking about creating technologies yourself, with moving forward, the model that we use at Whole Living Academy is to study, right? To study what has already been done, and then to observe the problem, for example, and then to create an innovation based on that, right? And this is something that anyone can engage in. And I want to actually get into showing you some examples here before we move further into the presentation so that everyone can connect well to the process. Let me come back to the screen and kind of reshare, right? A moment here. So what kinds of technologies are we able to build based on study, observation, and then moving into creating an innovation or invention to solve the problem? Let's take a little bit closer look at that here, okay? So this is one of our platforms, Green Growth Africa, where we recognize the problem of land being deforested and also overused across the African diaspora, right? And because of the land being deforested and overused, it's losing its nutrients, it's facing erosion. And of course, no matter how far we go into the future with flying cars and whatnot, we still need to be able to grow food, to be able to survive as humanity, right? So recognizing this problem, we built multiple plant research databases, including Green Growth Africa. Green Growth Africa documents over 278 plant species, many of which are either food-bearing or actually help to restore the land, or are medicinal in terms of addressing, some type of illness, right? So they're also documented in a way where they're sorted by region. So if we go into one of the plants here, for example, moringa, we can see that all of the information about the plant itself is documented, including like which parts are used, geographic distribution, on the continent, the natural habitat, and so on. But we can also see the medicinal uses of each plant. Like this is used for malnutrition, to treat diabetes, also used to treat inflammation. We can look at how the plant is used by culture. For example, in West African cultures, the leaf sauce is used by nursing mothers to boost the breast milk production. The seed powder can be used for water purification. The bark can be used to treat stomach ulcers, right? So this is an example of, learning about something, in this instance, learning about plants. That would be the seminar. observing what's happening in our communities, for example, deforestation and nutrients, being overused, taken away from the soil, like in the days of Dr. George Washington Carver, and then looking at how we can address these issues by creating a solution like Green Growth Africa, where people can come, they can see, all of the documented research on each one of these plants, also how to cultivate it, the business and economics of it, because of course, for people to be invested in something like this, they have to see how it can be, beneficial to them on the financial side as well, right? And just like what you see with the moringa here, there are over 250 plants that are documented the same way on this site. We also have simulations that we've built out for children to engage with so that they're learning about the plants at an early age, how to do herbal medicine formulations, looking at learning about crop rotation, ethical foraging, herbal fermentation, and so on, right? When we talk about using moringa to purify water, it may sound like, oh, that sounds cool, but how do you do that? Like, how could I possibly use the moringa tree to purify water? Well, we actually have, simulations that we have built in that talk about the issue itself, clean water as a human right, why it's important to have clean water, and then going into talking about how to actually use the moringa seeds to purify the water, step by step, through the simulations that we have here, as well as other tools that, both children and adults can use. We have built a similar site specifically for African-American children who are in the US, who resonate more with Dr. George Washington Carver, the carverschool.com, which you can see here. This is a Whole Living Academy project. This is also used as a science curriculum in other schools, such as Kamali Academy, another great African-centered school that's the students are able to learn about the history of Dr. Carver, to actually get into looking at, again, the data on each of these plants, and then engage with simulations. But in this case, it also shows those plants that, grow in the Americas, and focus on them as well, so that, the students can have a good idea of the plants that are around them and how they can benefit from them, right? Another innovation that's based on that process, learning, observing, and then looking at solving the problem. I mentioned this one to you earlier. This one was built in collaboration with one of my 12th graders that just graduated in May of this year, Zahara Taylor. And at the time that we built this, she was admitted to over 10 universities. But by the time that, she actually walked the stage, she was admitted to over 15 universities at that time, right? So when we look at this project, what we're doing is solving the problem of not having access to the data about the community around you, right? Can someone here give me their zip code?
85041.
85041, is that it?
Correct. Yes.
Okay, and so we can look up your zip code and we can see the water, the air, and the environmental data in your area by checking the public records. We're using a Perplexity API to be able to accomplish this. Perplexity is a digital tool that is AI powered, used for valid research based on real sources. And an API in the tech world is something that connects one thing to another, right? In this case, connecting the front end of our website to pulling that research from Perplexity and then putting it in plain language so that when you actually see your report, we built a game here well. So when you actually see your report, it's written in a way that you can understand and that you can implement in terms of any changes that you may need to make to protect yourself. And you can see the sources that it's pulling from the EPA, from Air Now data, from EJ Screen, and so on. So we see that in this zip code in Phoenix, Arizona, the water quality is actually much better than the national average. The air quality as well. However, there are some issues with, the land that, in comparison to other areas like contaminated and Superfund sites that are nearby to the zip code, for example, that, would be of concern. This is literally the best water that I've seen ever, like in the history of running these reports. So Brother Tehuti, if this is the area that you're living in, you're very fortunate, like compared to the rest of the country in regards to your water. So we can see that everything is within limit, the ozone, the fine particles, the coarse particles, and so on, right? The air quality, is actually really, really good. You do have, the issue of some sites nearby that may have some contamination, like regarding the land itself, but you're really safe in the area that you're living in, like much more so than many other areas in the United States. Now you can imagine that if we were to pull this up for, Houston, Texas, or Flint, Michigan,
right,
those numbers are going to look very different. And you need to know how to protect yourself, like what types of filters are going to work on what you're seeing coming up in your water. Because if you're pulling up the city water report, you're not going to see there how you can actually protect yourself. So you can start to feel powerless, or even like you don't want to know because there's nothing that you can do about it, right? But there is something that you can do about it. So you can see here, if you have lead, arsenic, radioactive materials, all of those can be filtered with a reverse osmosis filter. And for those things like bacteria, viruses, that the reverse osmosis filter may not work as well on, you could use the carbon filter. So you can actually get a filter that has a combination of the two to be able to address all of those issues, generally for less than $200, to help you to prolong your life, right? Even with the air quality, you can look at keeping your windows closed, using the HEPA air filters inside of the house, right? And then those can assist you with being able to improve your health and prolong your life as well. So having the information gives you a way to be able to protect yourself, right? How do we come up with this idea to be able to take that information and process it in this way and make it accessible to people through first learning? This particular student, as I shared, is going into the field of forensics. And what we're looking at here is environmental forensics, right? And then taking what we're learning and then combining that with the problem that we observe within our community or within our nation, and then creating that innovation. Another example of this in the health field is this platform that I built with my son, who is a computer scientist, Afrogenomic. And with this platform, we take the DNA file. Does anyone here have their ancestry test done?
Yes.
Okay,
yes,
where are you from?
Where am I from?
Where did you say that you're from in your ancestry report?
Oh, mostly was Mali. So it went back 3,000 years, and it placed, I think the largest percentage was about 38% was my highest one, and that was Mali.
Okay, and was that like Ancestry.com, 23andMe?
I did Ancestry.com, and I also did the African Ancestry. So the African Ancestry put me 38% in Mali. And again, you know, the way they work is different time periods. So the Ancestry.com,
Yes.
you know, they weigh it differently. Like one is on the mitochondrial DNA, and then the other was on like I'm not really sure how Ancestry.com weighed theirs, but they actually had me in Nigeria. It was like 50% in Nigeria. And I'm not sure the time frame.
Did you ever download your raw data from Ancestry.com, the TXT file with your RSIDs in it?
I did.
Okay, so that file, right, that has your raw data has a lot of other information in it, right? And so if you are able to interpret those RSIDs, you can look at your genetic advantages, how to support your body, nutrition and movement that match your profile, stress, sleep, emotional care, right? And so we actually built out a platform that looks at the rest of that data that is within that file. So that file that you have from Ancestry is really only around 10%, not more than 15% usually of your genome. It's not your full genome, right? But just from that portion of your genome, you can usually get anywhere from 150 to 180 health points, both on the positive and the, you know, side of, you know, potential concerns, to show you things about your body, even allergies, medications that you may be sensitive to that you may not know otherwise. And of course, you know, if you're going in and getting these tests done, you know, at the doctor, you can easily spend thousands of dollars on each test, right? But if you have that information and you can see the flagged areas very clearly, then if you do decide to go and follow up with the MD around areas of specific concern, you're not having to spend $100,000. You can just focus on that one area that you recognize, you know, may be a big issue, right? So just for example, in my Ancestry file, I saw that when I build Afrogenomic as a database, we also build an African American health marker based human genome database to go along with this as well, right? And I saw that I had a sensitivity to a certain medication that's used for chemotherapy, right? Now, my mom started chemo in around the spring of last year. So it was like I, you know, had found this out, you know, through the process of my own research and testing my platform. And then, you know, when my mom was starting chemotherapy, she had not taken the Ancestry test, but I brought it to her attention. I was like, hey, I don't know if this may be an issue for you too, but if it is, this is a huge red flag. Maybe you can ask your doctor about this. So when she asked her doctor about it, they said, oh, it's going to be too much trouble. It's going to cost too much to do the test. So we'll just give you a different medication and be on the safe side, right? So even with her bringing it to their attention and asking for the test, they still did not give it to her. But they did change what they were going to give her to be on the safe side. Otherwise, we don't know what would happen.
Right.
And if something had, you know, and at this point, you know, she's been going into remission, right? But if she had loss of life, like my grandmother, her mother, what would they have said besides, oh, I'm sorry, oh, my bad, or oh, that's not our fault. That's just the natural course of things, one or the other. But there's nothing you can do to reverse loss of life, right?
It sounds like the solution to what you were mentioning earlier, as far as how the pharmaceutical medicine is based on the Caucasian makeup.
Yes, it's definitely part of that solution. You know, for myself, I'm in the last semester of becoming, a board certified naturopathic doctor. I'm someone who has been studying holistic health for about 20 years and studying allopathic medicine even before that. So that's a part of, my background as well. I used to lead medical service trips for the University of Houston Honors College to Haiti, Haiti. And we did some really great stuff there that combined holistic medicine with allopathic medicine that really helped people so much and was able to preserve lives. And this is definitely part of the solution. Of course, I don't have like this huge bankroll, to be able to do things at the level that I would like to do it within the field of medicine, right? But I am able to access, certain data sets using my research credentials and then be able to use those in the process of building, these solutions to be based on science. And there are other people out there, who may be listening to this that may be able to do something similar in other areas. If you have a background, in academia, you have research credentials that you can use, then there are things that you can build, on whatever budget that you have that can contribute to these solutions as well, because it's going to take all of us to really be able to solve problems, across so many domains, right?
Right.
And so just going back here, we were just talking about, health, for example. Of course, aside from health, we have to look at land power, economic and land power as well, right? We have built out a fintech solution here on the continent that received attention earlier this year from CNBC Africa, Donor Bridge Africa, which is still in development. And with this platform, we figured out what the workflow would be for donations to be given via debit card, like if you're paying through Stripe, for example. And then from there, going through the Sila wallet. And there are a couple of other technologies that have been developed on the continent in Kenya, for example, that we use through that process. And then the end user, the local NGO here on the continent, is able to receive the money, not in crypto, but actually in the local currency to their mobile money account on their phone, right? And this was something that it took a lot of research just to, figure out like the back end of it, But as we continue to develop it, it's actually solving a major problem on the continent, or at least making a contribution to solving a major problem, right? Because right now there are literally billions of dollars that, are being wasted because of the fees when you're transferring money from the US to the continent. Billion-dollar industry, billions of dollars just being like flushed down the toilet, right? If you're able to use a sub-cent crypto like CeeLo in the process, sub-cent means less than a penny, right? So that means that if you're transmitting a donation for $10,000, the fee for that is still less than a penny for it to reach the end destination. So even if there's a small amount taken out by Stripe of, let's say, 3%, and then a small amount taken out by, Kotani Pay, for example, on the other end of, 1%, you're still not looking at a huge amount coming out. But if you're transmitting that money through the traditional systems that we're using now, with the wire transfers and the international fees and so on, you could really end up having a huge chunk of money coming out. We experienced that recently with raising money for one of our community centers. Even though I'm from Houston, living between Houston and Rwanda, East Africa at this time. And one of the community centers that we're currently caring for here is Nzozi Learning Center in Gashora, Rwanda, that was founded by my friend, Miss Jessica Washington, right? And we found that before we started making some changes, if we received a donation of $350, there was an attempt to take out like $50 just in fees.
Wow.
From that $350. Now, based on what the teacher volunteers for educating these 400 children are requesting, you know, for their travel stipend, that would cover just what's coming out right there, would cover 2 teachers for the whole month coming in to teach the children, right? But that payment for 2 teachers just literally being flushed down the toilet is crazy. So that was something that we had to address. And this is something that is widespread across the continent as a problem that we have to look at and that we have to figure out how we want to contribute to solving that. There are so many other problems in that arena that we can look at and solve. So those of you who are tech founders, or maybe you're just like the idea woman or the idea guy, right? You can think about the solution and then partner with someone who's a tech founder to be able, you know, to bring it into the world. You can bring your ideas into the world now, you know, for so much less money than you could in the past. You can do a project for $2,000 that would have cost you $200,000 10 years ago, right? So that democratization of technology and artificial intelligence, it has to be something that we're using to our benefit to be able to empower ourselves, rather than something that, you know, we're just like, oh, I'm going to use ChatGPT to write an email. That's definitely not using the technology, you know, to the full extent of its power, right? We need to look at things more deeply than that. On the side of looking at consciousness, aside from what we've done, you know, Whole Living Academy and with, you know, the Pan-African curriculum, you know, that you shared on the screen earlier, I can share it here as well. We have also developed blackhistorygames.com, culture and solving problems, you know, therein. We've also developed iknowblackhistory.com for Black History Month this year in 2026. That was, you know, our gift to the community, which you'll see load up here. So on iknowblackhistory.com, which is completely free, you can access history from, you know, ancient Africa all the way up to 2026. And, you know, you can explore by topic or you can explore by time period. And when you get into a particular time period, let me get somebody here to help me out. Pick a time period as I'm scrolling down that you might have an interest in. I'm going to start here from the top. So when you see one you like.
Let's see. Let's go with Molly. I see Mansa Musa right there.
Okay. So you can see that when you click into a time period that you're able to actually learn about the history of that time period. And we've taken time to put in the real images that are documented so that even if you didn't have, you know, a Black study background, you know, or degree or anything like that, right? You're still able to get access to the information that is going to contribute to your knowledge of self. Is anyone here an educator or maybe have an education background? I feel like one of these ladies has an education background.
Pastor, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, that counts. That
Okay.
counts because that's definitely education too. And, we can even talk about history and so on within the church, right? Using that as a way of educating the community as well. So if
Ms.
you click
Jean-Pierre,
here,
your microphone is muted.
Okay, there it is. So what
you were saying that you're a pastor, sister?
Yeah, in some sort, online. And I did do the Sunday school class for children. And I also did classes at what do you call those schools that are set up for the charter schools? I did classes there. So, but what
You're an educator. You're an educator for sure.
I just followed the curriculum, what they gave me to do. They have the books and everything. Okay, let's read this, do this, or whatever.
Yeah, so you can see here, this is our history, because when we talk about Black history, we're usually looking at the same things, right? We're looking at Benjamin Banneker, Dr. King, maybe Dr. Carver, right? But we're not talking about the Nile Valley's, Great Zimbabwe, Ife and Benin, the Iron Age, the knowledge systems, and so on, going all the way back. Even if you're talking about things from a perspective of Christianity, where do you see some of the oldest Christian artifacts in the world? In Ethiopia, right? And so are we talking about that? So we need to look at history far beyond, where we are now, where we can say, okay, this is, when the Obamas came into the picture, or this is when Black Lives Matter came into the picture. We need to see it going all the way back. And if you want to actually, thank you. And if you want to actually teach from here, you can click educator resources and you can choose any grade level, right? Elementary, middle school, high school, adults, and this is completely free. I know Black History.
Which website is this?
I know blackhistory.com. This is one of our innovations.
Can I ask a question? When you put the zip code in, what website was that?
Yes, I know it's so many sites. Y'all have to replay. Understandyourarea.com. Understandyourarea.com. Yeah, we're working on technologies that address all areas of nation building. We've been putting things out that address all areas of nation building. Yes, understandyourarea.com. You put in your zip code, check your zip code, and in about maybe 60 to 120 seconds, you will have a report on your water quality, your air quality, and also the quality of the land in your area, and any affected or be currently affecting the land in the area around you as well. And that was developed with my 12th grade student, Zahara, before she graduated in May of 2026.
That is great, great, great news. And I remember the zip code that you live in, Tahuti. I know someone that works for the water company, and he said you can drink that water, it's good, but I didn't believe him. I was like, no, I'm gonna drink my bottled water. I'm not drinking that. But right. It was good.
Yeah, his water was good. This zip code that I put in just now, this is my zip code for my Houston address. And Houston actually deals with a lot of radiation waste, right? Because you have like the cancer center and so on in Houston and other facilities that create a lot of like alpha particles and radiation waste that can affect the water, right? And so when we look at the water quality in Houston, we can see a lot of this is like either at limit or really close to being, at limit that is flagged. So it's not, the worst, to where we're seeing it just pop up as, like all problematic, but we do see that a lot of the things are like right at the limit. So you would definitely want to invest into, a filter if you're looking at, living in an area where you have, some of those issues coming up, right? And then, as I mentioned with this other resource, I Know Black History, that's going into the area of consciousness. You can choose a time period, choose a grade level, and then generate a resource pack for that topic and that grade level in just a few seconds that is downloadable for you to use to teach your class, to teach your children at home, however you're teaching. You have, everything that you can use, the assessment, the extension activities, and so on right there. You can print it out, right? And that way, you're not having to go and read, 200 books to be able, those of us who have, read the 200 books, right? I think it's our responsibility in a way, to make it accessible, because I don't think it's realistic for everybody to be able to go and do a major in Black studies or Africana studies, for example, right? And so for those of us who have, I do think that it's our responsibility to make that information accessible to others. We also make it accessible to children through games. You can see 360-degree virtual universe that leans into Black liberation, Pan-Africanism, servant leadership, healing, and long-term movement building for children. We have a quiz game here, a game that assists you with mastering chess and mastering Pan-African history at the same time, a game for learning financial management and entrepreneurship across different countries, global Black dollar, right? So these are all games that we have developed for the purpose of, taking these serious topics, around history, around culture, around entrepreneurship, and so on, in an engaging way, right? So those you can find at blackhistorygames.com. And everything here is child appropriate. So even when you play the game where, you're going through the child appropriate, so, you don't have to worry about any scenes that are going to be, very graphic or horrible or anything like that. We're educators. So we're able to talk about the history in a way where it can be true to, what has taken place, but at the same time, not create a situation where the children are going to be psychologically traumatized by the history in the process, right? So all of the imagery and everything that, we've designed here is also in consideration of that in lieu of consciousness. So of course, as you're thinking about your own ideas, those are things to keep in mind as well, right? When we're thinking about institutional educational power, aside from the platforms that I've showed you earlier, we have also built Grant Skills Academy, which also has some free modules that you all can access. Does anyone here need grants? Does anyone, any grants needed in the house? Anybody want some money?
Yes,
let me know.
Yes. Tell us about that.
Right.
Tell me.
I have enough.
I'm about to live on your website. You guys are doing so much. I'm so happy you came and shared this with us. Now continue to share the grants.
Yes. No, I'm so happy to share. So I shared with you that we received a $50,000 grant last year, right? We're also assisting with grant writing for, other institutions as well, to help them to receive, funding to carry forward their vision. And, you can be anywhere in the world. You need money to be able to do the things that you're trying to do, especially if they're mission driven, if they're nonprofit, you need to find the money. So you can see we have a free playbook here when you go to grantskillsacademy.com that you can download right away. And then, when you get into the actual modules here, you see grant fundamentals, fiscal basics, platform mastery, reading and RFP, proposal building blocks, budgets, compliance. It took me like a year to build this. Grant management and reporting, funding strategy, U.S. grants for global organizations. There's an educator track here, corporate funding, writing competitive education proposals and so on, STEM education funding, so all of those modules are here for you. We've also built out almost 70 simulations so that you can actually practice with, real issues that you may come across in the process of, being in this field of grant research and grant writing, so you can see the characters in the simulations, and it's like, okay, the board chair text you, can you announce on social tonight and start hiring tomorrow? You just received this funding. What are you going to do, right? Well, you need to actually look at the award letter, flag every date, deliverable, and cost rule before you start talking about it publicly, right? And so these simulations do help you to be able to really master all of the aspects of the field. We've also built NoCodeSolutions.com to help people to master these AI tools, to know what it costs, even before you get started. There's a free guide you can get here as well, NoCodeSolutions.org, right? We have courses here that you can access that teach you all of the basics of being able to do what we do. And even like the code that you may want to learn, a little bit of Python, for example, so that if you are working with AI, you can take it to a different level than maybe some of the things that you see others building, right? Even if you're looking at working with a cloud like AWS, Azure, Google Cloud, we have courses and projects that you can access here to build platforms that would assist you again with addressing issues in the African diaspora. How do you use cloud, AWS, for example, to build a telemedicine platform? Here are all the steps to be able to do that. And so you can go into your course, you can choose a project like, video consultations, mental health, veterinary health, and then we actually walk you through the entire project so that you have your end result. Now, if anyone here is in the tech world at all, you know that if you're getting these certifications like AWS, Azure, if you actually want to get a job with them or start a business, you have to have a portfolio of what you've built. And if you go and look for ideas on like ChatGPT or on Google, those ideas are not benefiting us as a people. They're not designed like, oh, this is what you can do to benefit the African diaspora, right? So this platform that we've built, all of the projects benefit us, benefit our people across the world. So that way, even in the process of building your portfolio, you're building a portfolio of something that's actually able to assist us, right? And I think that I want to be really sensitive to time, so I'm going to kind of go faster through the rest of the slides. We can look at maternal health, educational inequities, the wealth gap. All of these things can be addressed in some way by technology. every disparity that exists is a market that no one served. So not only are these opportunities to be able to address problems in the diaspora, they are also opportunities to develop revenue, to create jobs, right? The liberation work and the paid work can be the same work. These are some of the platforms that we have developed. You know, I'm going to just stay here for a moment in case anyone wants to pause the video later on and be able to come back to these, be able to check them out, right? At least just one of them is not currently deployed, which is a MetaNet reader that we've developed just here in the past few weeks to be able to look at the MetaNet or the hieroglyphs, you know, as we say, and show you the translation and transliteration just by taking a picture with your phone, right? That was something that I really wanted to build after spending time in Cairo and Aswan recently.
I'm interested.
Look at that.
Very interesting.
Yeah. I was like, man, I want to read it for myself.
I know.
I'm like, I feel like y'all lying to me. Like something
I want to know for sure. How do you read that? I was just talking to one of our guests before about that.
Right.
Read it.
Right. I'm like, let me see for myself. Like, I don't believe you for real, you know? So, you know, if you have a problem, you can look at, like I say, developing a solution for whatever problem, you know, that we're looking at. And we have so many problems within, you know, the United States and in the Black world, so to say, right? You know, if we get, you know, back to talking about just the US, how many people do we know that have bench warrants for missed court dates, unpaid fines, clerical errors, right?
Right.
You can develop an app. Right. You can develop an app that can help address that. Did you all hear about the brothers that developed the app to help people with expungements?
No. What's that app called?
Yeah. Yeah, there were two brothers from Howard and developed an app. Let me pull it up here that addresses expungements. And so, you know, it actually uses AI. It's called Legal Ease, right? By Lawrence Blackman and Roger Roman. And it checks your criminal record eligibility to file the expungement, and then it files it via voice, web chat, or SMS without having costly legal representation. And they were actually here in Rwanda last year visiting. You know, at least one of these brothers, you know, was here last year visiting. And you can see that they were able to use these technologies, to use the AI technology to benefit our people in a very real way, right? And how many problems like this do we have? That if we're really looking at, we're really thinking about it, we could be solving problems all day. Every day you could be solving a problem.
Well,
right?
you've done a lot of that.
Thank you. Every day, wake up.
So much time on these sites that you're telling us about. I am so excited.
Yes, I'm really grateful. You know, that, you know, we have, you know, in the US and here in Rwanda that, you know, assist with building all of these platforms that I've shared with you here today. That would be another thing, is just think about team building, right? You know, even if you don't have money, you can still build a team, and maybe you can share on the back end. You know, you come to an agreement, work together to build something, you know, share the profits from it, you know, once you know, start making money, right? There's so many things that we can address. Go ahead, Brother Tehuti.
Yes, Miss Lizzie, you said you had a question?
My question is the app out now, or it's coming? I'm trying to verify what I thought I heard.
The Legal Ease app.
It
The
seems
one
like I
we're
heard
talking about right now.
Which app? The one for the expungements?
The information that you're showing right now, where is it from as far as the grants and all of that?
Yeah, all of those are live. Yeah, so even if you just went to Google, if you didn't get everything down and you just rewatch and you say, okay, let me go to Grant Skills Academy and just look it up, right? Then you can see right here, Grant Skills Academy is an interactive online learning platform by Ashante Global Solutions. And you see it right there, you know, at the top of Google, right? So everything that I've shared with you, except for the MetaNeta reader that, you know, we haven't released yet, everything else, even if you just type it into Google, you would see it come up right there at the top. Everything here is live.
Okay, now what is the title of the?
You said, what is the title?
I guess I'm a little lost.
So, yes. You're like, how do I get back to everything? So, what you can do is you can go to AsanteGlobalSolutions.org, right? And if you just go to that one site, then you can see the connection to all of these systems that we have built. And so that's the one site for you to write down, okay? Just write down AsanteGlobalSolutions.org. Now, you know, normally I don't share all of the things that we've developed at one time, but considering the nature of this show and, you know, that we're doing a focus on tech, I know that the amount of information can be a little bit overwhelming, right? So if you just put down AsanteGlobalSolutions.org, then when you go to that one site, you can see everything. You can see the interview that we did with CNBC Africa. You can see the solutions that, you know, we have created and, you know, what each of those solutions actually does. Everything is in that one place, AsanteGlobalSolutions.org. That way you don't have to try to remember all of the different sites. But what I do want you to remember is that you can solve problems with technology, right?
Okay.
And hold that in your mind. And then you can think of problems that you see in your community or that you see across the US or that you see across the world, right? And then when you think about, you know, what we're up against, think about what can be built. You know, is it a maternal health app? Is it something to help people reclaim land that's lost through an unclear title or predatory lending? You know, are you thinking about ways to channel donations? Are you thinking about ways to help people find jobs, you know, or to address the wage gap in some way, right? These are all things that can be built. Even if you don't build it, just come up with the idea and then partner with somebody that, you know, could help you to build it, right? You may do soil monitoring. You know, I'm sure that there are so many problems that you can think about if you really just sit down and brainstorm. And then the technologies that are out there now, some of them you can start by putting in a prompt. You know, now, if you really want to build it all the way out, so, like I said, to nocodesolutions.org, one of our sites, and we have the courses there available to help you with that, right? If you want to build it start to finish. But these are tools you can start to explore that use AI, you know, Replit, Lovable. Go ahead.
I have a question here because
yes,
these sites are fantastic. They're magnificent. And there's solution based, and you can apply these to, I mean, I don't think anyone can't find a way to apply one of these websites to their lives that benefits them directly. I think everyone can benefit from something that you've shown us.
That's right.
So my question is, the question that Miss Lizzie normally asks, which is how do we drive traffic and get this information out to the people?
That was
Yeah.
going to be my question. But anyway.
I'm sorry, I beat you to it, Miss Lindsay.
Yeah. So before I answer that question, I just want to stay on this slide for at least 5 seconds in case anybody needs to come back to it and take a screenshot, because a prerequisite to that question is, how do we get the money to pay for all these credits to use all these sites in the first place, right? So there are some resources out there that you can use to be able to get free credits. Look for those, resources for startups. You would just need to get a business email to be applicable for a lot of these free credits. So when you go to Google Workspace, if you have, MelaNation, right? You may have an email like info@melanation.com instead of melanation@gmail.com to get these credits, which can even be in the 6 figures, right? You cannot use. So if you want to get credits, and I'm talking about, like, let's say you want to use AWS to build something, like, Amazon has a cloud service you can use to build something that could be like a Uber, but maybe it's a black Uber or something, right? Mm-hmm. You want to build that, you need AWS. You can get $5,000 in AWS credits very, very easily from Microsoft for startups, which is free to sign up for, or from even like Notion for startups. Like, these credits are out there for you to claim. But you need to have a business email to be able to claim these credits, right? Mm-hmm. So you can't have melanation@gmail.com. Okay. It would need to be, info@melanation.com or admin@melanation.com or tehuti@melanation.com, right? It has to be that when you purchase your domain, that you also get the Google Workspace along with it.
Alexa, stop.
Yes. So that would be the first thing. The second thing, in terms of what Brother Tehuti was saying about mobilizing the technology, and I'm going to come back here to the main screen if I can and stop sharing. Okay, about mobilizing the technology to the people, that's where you have to start getting into marketing and sales funnels, right? And how do you learn marketing? It's just like how you learn anything else. You devote yourself to studying just that thing. And I would suggest, going along the lines of studying more so guerrilla marketing if you don't have a bunch of money to put into marketing, right? So there's a book called $1 Million Weekend by Noah Kagan that is great, for just getting into some real, guerrilla marketing. You don't have a lot of money, a big budget to put into marketing, read $1 Million Weekend, and you can start getting customers for something that you've created this weekend, right? I can even send it to you as a gift, if you let me know, like after the show, I'm happy to do that. So you have to look at the resources that are out there that are going to assist you with reaching your goal. Anything that you create that you want to have reach the people, it needs to have a sales funnel associated with it. What is a sales funnel? A sales funnel starts with a lead generator, right? Now, if you go panafricancurriculum.com right now, you're going to see a pop-up that says, get on the wait list for Scholarverse, provide your name and your email address, and then we'll let you know when Scholarverse is live. That's a lead generator. Now we have your name and your email. That means we can let you know when this thing is ready. That's going to be good for you, but also good for us, right? If you go to grantskillsacademy.com, it's going to say, get the free playbook to write your first grant, right? When you get that playbook, what are you going to provide? Your name and your email address. Now we're able to communicate with you, let you know what we have to offer that may be beneficial for you, right? That's the first step in a sales funnel, is being able to reach people to capture leads, right?
Okay.
So when you're doing your marketing through, Facebook and Instagram and so on, and you're putting things out there, you're basically creating, I would suggest, if you're doing a marketing campaign, to plan out your marketing campaign for at least 3 to 4 months. I actually worked with a brother, Vernon Speller, recently, who has a marketing coaching company, and that really helped us a lot with, learning marketing skills and so on. His company is called Embrace Your Free, right? And we did like a 90-day campaign, and then we added some extra days. So it really ended up being like 4 months for panafricancurriculum.com, right? And so we were able to get our wait list, up close to 1,000 signups, on the site almost at this point, through working with him by doing a campaign over the course of time. A lot of times we just create things and then we just put it out there. And we say, okay, I created this. Let me put it out there and see who shows up, instead of taking time to engage people strategically. You might spend a month just putting out engaging content where you're not trying to sell anything.
Mm-hmm.
You're just putting out things to engage the audience on the platform. Then you're putting out things that will engage their pain points around the problem, which means that you're understanding who has that problem that you're solving, right? Nothing is for everybody. Grant Skills Academy is not for everybody. Grant Skills Academy is for people that want to write grants. So, who would we target? Mainly nonprofit founders, universities that want to do nonprofit training, for students and so on, right? And so reaching out to those audiences based on their pain points, what problem are they trying to solve? Then you can transition to the process of, hey, we have the solution, right? That may be in your second or third month of your marketing campaign. So just think strategically. A lot of times we have that mindset of like, build it and they will come. That's not necessarily true. Like, some people will come, but like not that many, So if you really want to reach, a large number of people, then you may even have to back up your marketing even more and market it 6 months out, 12 months out, build up your leads, right? Do your outreach and when you send out messages and you post stuff, don't just post stuff where you're like, come buy my thing. It's $100. It's good, right? Like, you want to make sure that the things that you're posting are educational, are entertaining, are engaging the audience. Not everything has to be a sales pitch. Maybe only 10% of what you're posting is actually selling something, right? The rest of it is just providing value to the audience. By providing value to the audience, you're holding their attention. When you send out your newsletter, it shouldn't be, this is what I have for sale this week. It should be something that's going to benefit the audience, right? Make a positive difference in their lives in some way. Then at the bottom, you could say, by the way, we have this, but they've already gotten the benefit first, value first. And then people are going to say, you've given me so much value. What is it that you have to offer? I want to get involved with that. I know that if you've helped me this much, whatever you have to offer will probably help me too. Right? Instead of leading with, hey, buy my thing. Why is nobody buying it? Don't post negative things about yourself. That's one of the last things I would share with you. Everybody wants to be on a winning team. Nobody wants to be on a losing team. Don't post anything talking about, oh, nobody wants to buy this. Why don't Black people support each other? Don't complain online. Everybody wants to be on a winning team. Share your successes. Share the successes that you have. People are going to say, wow, That's amazing. I want to learn more about that. That seems like something that's really working. And that's another marketing, technique that I would share with you, and just capture as much content as possible. As much documentation as possible of your thing working, right? Because then you're able to draw more people to it, because they can see, how it has worked, through that content that you've shared.
I say, wonderful. That was some very detailed information. And like I said, the information that you provided is invaluable. Everyone can use this information in one way or another. So we definitely appreciate you coming on. You're definitely welcome back on at any time. What we normally do at the end of our session is we ask our guest speaker just to speak to the audience, if you have any advice for the audience. And I know a lot of the things that you said was really towards advice, but if you have anything on your mind that you can speak directly to the audience, please do so.
Yes, the main thing that I would really say is, to understand that, we are really rebuilding as a global nation, as a people, right? And it is not the time to sit on the sidelines. So whatever it is that you do, it's time for you to do it, and do it well. So if you're an educator and you know that that's your true purpose, okay, maybe that's not the job that you're working. Maybe you're working at a warehouse, but you're really an educator. Okay, start teaching class on the weekends, even if it's not for money. Start teaching classes on the weekends. I saw that someone here was a minister, and working with people, helping them, with their spirit, with their emotional issues.
Well, we might have a little interruption here. I'm sure she'll come back on. It's been going like this for a while.
Uh-oh. There we go. Am I coming back in?
Yes.
But you're frozen.
Yes. Yes. Am I still frozen?
No.
Good job.
So if you are doing data entry during the daytime, but you're really a minister, do your ministry, right? If you're helping people with their spirit, with their mind, with their emotions, right? Then do that. Even if you're doing that on the weekends, or, after the day is over, make sure that you're doing that. Like Brother Tehuti with, doing the educational podcast, and, creating, big, wonderful projects in the tech world. He may be doing other things as well, to be able to just keep the lights on, for now. And that's okay. Put in those extra hours, put in the extra time to make sure that you're making the contributions to our future, to our children, to our grandchildren. Drink water, do push-ups, make sure you're taking care of your mind, body, and spirit, because of course, if you're not here, then you can't make an impact. And that would just be, what I have to share with everybody as a final word.
Fantastic.
Thank you so much.
Ms. Janvier, if you'd like to do your closeout.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. And it was such a wonderful segment. I say that every time, but it seems like it's getting better and better. I want to thank you so much, Ashante, so much for all the valuable information that you brought. And seeing that you were able to get on and get off and back on, like we have a hard time doing that here. We could use someone like you. Technology. Appreciate you so much for giving that to us. I mean, it was a wealth of knowledge and things that we would never have, at least I would never have thought of. But I'm going to spend a lot of time on those sites that you gave me. Thank you so much. And everybody, if you didn't watch the whole thing, go back and watch it. It's worth it. But thank you for being with us as far as you have been.
Thank you.
Lizzie Woody.
Yes, it was a ton of information that you passed on. And you do have a Facebook page, correct?
Yes, Nikala Asante on all
Because
platforms.
I'm going to go to your Facebook page just because I want to help promote what you're doing and get it out
Thank
to, to the people so that we can take advantage of it. So thank you so much with all the information that you're giving us. And, as everyone is saying, we need this. We need this. So thank you.
Thank you.
Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. And the last thing that I'm just going to say, everyone who's watched, I'm sure they appreciate the time and effort that we've been putting in. And we're here every Wednesday, 6 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. In the meantime, reach out to Nikala Ashante on Facebook or through, what other means can the audience reach you at?
Yes, they can reach me, of course, at Nikala Asante on all platforms, NIKALA ASANTE. They can also email me at info@wholelivingacademy.com, WHOLE, Whole Living Academy, info@wholelivingacademy.com. I'm happy to hear from everyone. I look forward to it. And thank you so much for tuning in. This is really a great show. And Brother Tahuti is, even getting ready to release some really powerful technology that I'm super excited about with the MelaNation App.
Were you able to get the download that I sent the other day?
I wasn't able to download it on my phone. If you're able to resend it, I'm going to try it from the PC. I think that my bandwidth on my phone maybe wasn't, enough, or maybe not enough storage to be able to download it directly there.
Okay. Yes, indeed. When this goes live, we're going to show the actual app, the prototype to the app prior to the MelaNomics segment. But yes, indeed. And I know you gave me some very sound advice when we spoke last week in reference to some things that we can implement as well. So we definitely appreciate you.
Definitely.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Sister Marjorie, Sister Lizzie, Brother Tehuti. I really enjoyed, being here with you all today. It was an honor. Thank you for allowing me, to share our gifts. And thank you for sharing your gifts. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in.
That being said,
the honor is all mine.
That being said, we're going to go ahead and end now. And I'll just like to say peace to the audience and peace to everyone who participated today. Ashe,
Bye,
Ashe, Ashe.
Thank you.
Thank you for being here.